Hey everybody, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're looking into something that I think a lot of people can relate to, living that paycheck to paycheck life. And, we're going to try to figure out why that is for so many folks, and more importantly, what you can do about it.
Yeah, there's this idea out there that only people with low incomes live paycheck to paycheck. But that's actually not true at all. It's a lot more common than people think.
Yeah, you're totally right. I was looking at some stats from Bankrate, and they found that 34% of workers are living paycheck to paycheck. Like, that's more than 1 in every 3 people. And even crazier is that 24% of those people are making six figures.
Wow, so even folks making $100,000 or more are still living paycheck to paycheck. It's kind of like a hidden problem. It's everywhere.
Yeah, it really is time to try to fix this. So before we get into how to get out of this paycheck to paycheck cycle, what does it even mean?
Right, so Investopedia defines living paycheck to paycheck as not being able to meet your financial obligations if you lose your job. So basically, it means you don't have much in savings, if any at all.
I see. So it's not just about how much money you make, it's about having some backup. Okay, so if it's not just about income, then what is it about? Like, why are so many people stuck in this paycheck to paycheck situation?
Well, one of the biggest reasons is the cost of living keeps going up. Investopedia pointed out that wages haven't been keeping up with inflation. A lot of people are getting raises each year, but those raises aren't enough to keep up with how much more expensive things are getting.
So even if you're making more money each year, it might not even feel like it.
Exactly. Inflation is a sneaky thing.
Yeah, it really is like you're working harder, but not really getting anywhere.
That's a good way to put it. In fact, this expert from Bankrate named Sarah Foster called inflation a silent thief.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading that.
It's like it slowly steals away your money without you even realizing it.
It's crazy how much more expensive everything has gotten. Before we go any further, I do want to quickly thank all of you for supporting our channel. Your subscriptions make this show possible. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so we can keep making these deep dives for you.
Yes, thank you all so much for your support. Now, I think it's important to talk about how the pandemic has made this whole paycheck to paycheck problem even worse.
For sure,
Yeah.
the pandemic definitely messed things up for a lot of people financially.
Absolutely. Investopedia actually found that 63% of Americans have been living paycheck to paycheck since the pandemic started.
Wow, that's a huge jump.
It really is.
I mean, think about it. A lot of us had to change our spending habits during that time. We're ordering more takeout, buying stuff for our home offices. Maybe some people had unexpected medical bills too. It was a really uncertain time.
Yeah, all of that, plus worrying about the economy, really put people in a tough spot. And even though things have gotten a bit better, a lot of people are still dealing with the fallout, like having less in savings and more debt than before.
Yeah, and that brings us to credit cards. They can be super helpful when you're in a pinch, but the interest rates are so high, it's easy to fall into a debt trap and end up even further behind.
You're right, it's definitely a slippery slope. But the important thing to remember is that if you're stuck in this paycheck to paycheck cycle, it's not your fault. It's a huge problem that we need to fix as a society. But the good news is that there are things you can do to break free.
That's what I like to hear. So we've talked about some of the reasons why so many people are living paycheck to paycheck. But what can our listeners do about it? What steps can they take to get out of this cycle and start feeling more financially secure?
Well, the first step is to just be aware of where your money is going. You have to understand your spending habits before you can start making changes. Think of it like a checkup for your finances.
Yeah, that makes sense. But honestly, sometimes looking at your spending habits is scary. It can be tempting to just ignore it.
I know what you mean. But trust me, once you know where your money is going, you'll have a much better idea of how to manage it.
Okay, so how do we do that? Are there any tools or strategies that can help us track our spending?
Yeah, there are tons of budgeting apps out there that can do a lot of the work for you. Even some banks have budgeting features built right into their apps. And if you're more of a do-it-yourself person, you can just use a spreadsheet.
I love a good spreadsheet.
Me too.
Yeah.
And once you have all your expenses tracked, the next step is to figure out which of those are needs and which are wants. That's super important for creating a budget that actually works for you.
Okay, needs versus wants. That's a classic.
Hmm.
But honestly, it can be so hard to tell the difference sometimes, especially with all the ads we see every day trying to convince us that we need all this stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's not about depriving yourself. It's about being mindful of your spending. When you're thinking about buying something, ask yourself, do I really need this or do I just want it? Could I wait to buy this or find something similar that's less expensive?
Right. It's about making sure your spending aligns with your values and your goals.
Exactly. It can be helpful to think about your long-term financial goals. Like, are you saving up for a down payment on a house or a dream vacation? Keeping those goals in mind can make it easier to make smart choices about your spending.
It's like having a roadmap for your money. Okay, so we've talked about tracking expenses and figuring out needs versus wants, but what are some concrete things people can do to actually reduce their spending? Where should they start cutting back?
Well, one thing a lot of people forget about is subscriptions. All those monthly charges for streaming services, meal kits, gym memberships, they can really add up.
Oh yeah, for sure. I did a subscription audit a while back and was shocked by how many things I was paying for that I wasn't even using.
Yeah, it happens. Go through all your subscriptions and be ruthless. Cancel anything you don't use regularly or that you could live without.
Good advice. And what about things like groceries and utilities? Are there ways to save money on those everyday essentials?
Definitely meal planning and prepping can make a huge difference in your grocery bill.
I love meal prepping. It saves so much time and money.
For sure. And for utilities, you can try to be more mindful of your energy usage, make sure you're using energy efficient appliances, and you can even try negotiating a lower rate with your provider.
Yeah, don't be afraid to negotiate. We talked about that before with salaries, but it can work for other things too. Just a little bit of research and confidence can help you save some money.
Absolutely. Another thing you can negotiate is insurance. Shop around for better rates on your car, home, and health insurance. You might be surprised at how much you can save.
That's a great tip. So we've talked about tracking expenses, being mindful of needs versus wants, and reducing spending. What else can people do to break free from this paycheck to paycheck cycle?
Well, one thing that often gets overlooked is side hustles.
Right, the gig economy is huge these days. And it's not just for young people either.
Exactly. Side hustles are a great way for people of all ages and backgrounds to make some extra money. It could be anything from freelancing to dog walking to selling crafts online. The key is to find something you enjoy and that fits your skills.
Yeah, I have a friend who started doing photography on the side, and now she has a whole business.
That's awesome. Even a small side income can make a big difference. It can help you pay off debt faster, build up your savings, or just give you a little more breathing room in your budget.
It's like having multiple streams of income flowing in.
And speaking of savings, let's talk about the holy grail of financial stability, the emergency fund.
Ah, yes, the emergency fund. That's essential for breaking the paycheck to paycheck cycle. Life is full of surprises, and unexpected expenses are bound to happen.
Yeah, like car repairs, medical bills, home repairs, those things can really throw a wrench in your budget if you're not prepared.
Exactly. And without an emergency fund, you're more likely to rely on credit cards or high-interest loans when those things come up. And that can just keep you stuck in the cycle of debt.
So how much should we aim to have in our emergency fund?
The general rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses.
Hmm.
But of course, the more the better. It really depends on your individual circumstances and how much risk you're comfortable with. That can seem like a lot of money, especially when you're already struggling to make ends meet. How do you even get started saving that much?
Start small. Even if it's just $10 or $20 a week, the important thing is to be consistent. Set up automatic transfers from your checking account to your savings account so you don't even have to think about it.
I love that idea. Pay yourself first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And any extra money you get, like tax refunds, bonuses, or birthday money, put that straight into your savings account.
It's like giving your savings a little bonus.
Exactly.
Okay, so building an emergency fund is a long-term goal. But what about right now? Are there any strategies people can use to manage their cash flow more effectively in the short term?
One thing you can try is negotiating a lower interest rate on your credit card debt. Even a small reduction in your interest rate can save you a lot of money over time.
That's a great point. And while we're on the topic of credit cards, it's important to use them responsibly.
Definitely. It's easy to overspend and rack up a lot of debt if you're not careful.
For sure. Credit cards should be a tool, not a burden. Speaking of which, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the mental side of money. It's not just about the practical steps, it's also about our mindset and our beliefs about money.
Yeah, our relationship with money can be really complicated. It's often shaped by how we were raised, our personal experiences, and even societal messages.
That's so true. We all have these beliefs about money that we might not even be aware of. And sometimes those beliefs can hold us back from reaching our financial goals.
Exactly. Like if you grew up hearing things like, money doesn't grow on trees, or we can't afford that, those messages can create a sense of scarcity and make you feel like there's never enough.
It's like we inherit a money script without even realizing it.
Yeah.
So how can we change that script? How can we develop a healthier and more empowering relationship with money?
Well, the first step is to just be aware of your thoughts and feelings about money. Pay attention to how you react when you think about finances. Do you feel stressed, anxious, Ashamed?
It's like shining a light on those subconscious beliefs that might be driving our financial decisions.
Exactly. And once you've identified those limiting beliefs, you can start to challenge them and reframe them. For example, instead of saying, I'm bad with money, try saying, I'm learning and growing in my financial journey.
It's about shifting from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, believing that you can change and improve.
Exactly. And it's also about focusing on abundance rather than scarcity. There's enough money to go around. When you shift your focus from lack to abundance, you open yourself up to new possibilities and opportunities.
It's like attracting wealth rather than feeling it. And it's important to remember that you're not alone in this. So many people struggle with their finances, and there's no shame in asking for help.
Absolutely. There are so many resources available, like financial advisors, credit counseling agencies, and even online communities. Don't be afraid to reach out and get the support you need.
It's like having a whole team of financial cheerleaders in your corner. And remember, every journey starts with a single step. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, just pick one small thing you can do today to improve your financial well-being.
Yeah, it could be as simple as creating a budget, setting up an automatic savings transfer, or negotiating a lower bill.
Every little bit counts.
Yeah,
And over time, those small actions will add up and create real lasting change.
absolutely. It's all about empowering yourself to take control of your finances and create a future where you feel secure and confident.
I love that. Well said. Well, on that note, I think we're going to wrap up this deep dive into escaping the paycheck to paycheck trap. Remember, knowledge is power, and you have the power to change your financial story.
Absolutely.
And as always, thank you all so much for tuning in. Your support means everything to us.
Yes, thank you.
And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives like this one. We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic.
Until then, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.